Hey guys, this is Sean with Wheelchair Plus. Today I'm going to show you how to remove a motor from a Pronto M51. So the first thing you want to do is you want to unplug your joystick and anything you have attached to the chair. You could have a tilt switch. You want to make sure you have everything that's connected from the chair to the bottom part of the frame unhooked. This is a bus cable because it's a dynamic. It's a joystick. So what you do is you pull these two down and then you pop this off. And on this particular chair, that's all you have to do. Any other options, please make sure you follow the wires and unhook it if necessary. Go ahead and throw the seat down. You have a lever on the bottom right here. You'd press this up and lift the top section off. If you have a friend that could help you, this would be great at this time. So I'll go ahead and take this top seat off. Now, let me give you a bird's eye view. Now, Pronto is known to put different type of covers on here. On this particular chair, this is what this cover looks like. You can press your hand, press this down a little bit, grab this frame up. You should be able to lift up, slide it out. There you go. I set this over here. So this is what it looks like. You have a plastic shroud over here over the tire. We can go ahead and take this off. You can either use a flathead screwdriver, or you have the option to use a socket, and it is a 5/16. So go ahead and start taking this off. Sadly, today my socket wrench broke, so just bear with me a minute. Be a little tedious today. You have two up here. I believe there's two on the bottom. Just go easy. This will take a little bit of time. There we go. Set that to the side. Make sure you don't lose it. By the way, if you are replacing motors for your chair and you bought them from eBay, before I would do any of this, what I would do was, if I were you, I would take this front cover off and hook it directly to the control box, and go ahead and plug your joystick back in, and make sure that the motors are working before you go through all this process, because sometimes that may not be what was wrong with your chair, or possibly you got some faulty motors. But before I would go this far, I would make sure just to hook it to the control box, and before you do all this, make sure that's actually your problem. A little bit of advice. Okay. There we go, it's coming. You may want to fast forward this part. There you go. Now you should have two more. Oh, let's see. There are some under here. I screwed it just a little bit before I started the video. And you have one here. So if you just loosen it a little bit, you don't have to take it out all the way. You see, it should just slide off. you might have to take the front one completely off, and the back one will just slide off. So let's just unscrew this one. Okay. And maybe, oh great, it just slid right off. Okay. So the next part you want to do is you want to make sure that the motors are locked or this wheel isn't spinning. So we need to get this wheel off. So let me find a flathead screwdriver. Okay. So on the Prontos, what they've done is they have, I'll try to get a little bit of light here. I didn't help much. Okay, you have these prongs, and you should have like 3 of them sticking up, and you'll see that one of them is down on the bolt. So you have to be extremely careful and pry that up so you can get your socket wrench on it. So I usually try to get like in the corner and press it up. And I've actually hurt myself doing this before because a lot of times the screwdriver would slip and you'd actually cut yourself. So make sure you're cautious of what you're doing. Okay, go ahead, and I like to twist it and it'll pry up. You don't have to put it all the way back, just enough, there you go, where you can get a socket in there. Let's go ahead and find what socket we need. Let me see. Let's try one here. Okay. Here we go. This is obviously 1/2 inch. Okay. I will loosen it. Here we go. So what I like to do is, if it's really tight on there, just make sure it's on there really good. I usually put my foot on it and go as straight down as possible so I don't strip anything. But in this case, this is a little loose. And because my socket wrench is messed up, I'm gonna have to keep doing this until it comes off. Okay, it's actually almost off. Another thing you wanna make sure to do is buy some, which I will say again in the video, it's blue removable thread lock. You really wanna put some on the screw. Obviously somebody has taken this off before, and it really shouldn't have been this loose. Probably because they didn't put the blue removable Loctite, and it was partially backed out a little bit. So especially on your wheelchair, which you're gonna be going over a lot of vibration and bumps, you definitely wanna put some on this screw, and you wanna put it on the Allen screws when you put them in, so you don't wanna accidentally back those screws out, so when you're riding your chair, the motor will just fall off. Or you'll probably break the gearbox, which is probably what would happen. And you'd have to buy a new gearbox or a new cover. Okay, so now I'm able to unscrew this. Okay, this is what it looks like. You can see it a little bit better. Okay. So this is a mid-wheel drive chair. So a bunch of the way is pivoted to the middle. So when you take the tire off, sometimes they kind of crumble in the middle because that's just the way they're set up. You see the spring. So I usually prop the tires on something. Let's see here. These should come out. Now I know when you're watching a video and everything goes right, that's something you don't want to see, because when you do it, typically what always happens is everything goes wrong. So I have to, let's see, look, it's coming up just straight. So obviously somebody's taken this off before. So if that won't come off, let's see. I usually put the chair on its side where the frame's sticking up, and I would pull left and right and pull up on the tire as it's coming out. I know you don't want to scratch your chair, but that is an option. I would say a gear puller, but on this particular tire, the way they made it, it would be hard to use one on it. So what I would do if it's stuck, spray some DW40, flip the chair where it's laying on that tire, and wiggle it left and right, and pull up at the same time, and eventually it will come off. It's just hard work, and it's bad on your back, really. So go ahead and remove stuff from this. Another problem, you don't want to strip these Allens, and like as you can see here, there's usually a lot of dirt and debris. So you may want to get a small Allen or a Q-tip, wet it, and go in there and clean these out, because if your Allen barely goes on there, it's a pretty much guarantee that you're about to strip it. So you want to make sure to clean any clogs out. So this should be a 5mm, I'm sure. There's actually a lot of grease on this. That's actually, after a certain amount of time, that is normal, because eventually grease will turn into a thinner liquid and will just naturally pour out. So every once in a while, what I do is I take my cover off, I dump the grease in it, which is usually like water, and then I go to the auto parts store and just throw some grease in there, and I'm usually good to go. Typically on wheelchairs, I don't hear of anybody who does that. But anyway, another problem, another thing we'll have to take apart, and different people do different things. You have a lever here that's attached to this. So you can either wait and take it off, or you can do it now. Let me see. What I usually like to do is go ahead and take it off. It's just a pin that's wrapped around this lever. Let me see. You may have to unlock it to get a better look. There we go. Okay. And you can take a flathead screwdriver and let me see. Let's see. I'm trying to get you a better angle here. Not really working out in my favor. Okay. Anyway, you'll be able to see it on yours. There is a pin under here, and they just twist it around so you don't know it's pliers. Let me see. So you will have to remove this. Let's see. Somebody has really cut this one short. I usually see them really long. Hopefully the one in your chair is longer than this one, because this is going to be a headache. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the chair on the side. Okay. Okay, let me move my hand here. See. There it is. You can just barely see it. So you can either get some pliers, needle nose pliers, or a flathead screwdriver and get it out. So let's go ahead and try that. And you may have to keep constantly messing with this brake lever, because you're gonna have to be doing anything possible to get your angle right, trying to get this little lever off. They're usually not this short. Somebody cut this one short. Okay. You can kind of see it. Both of them right there. All you have to do is straighten them out, and you'll be able to pull it with some needle nose. Okay. There we go. Another option is they usually put either Allens, you can see it right there. Sometimes it's a punch. It's either one or the other. It's either a Allen, or you'd have to get a punch and punch it out. That is another option. If you don't want to mess with this like what I'm doing, you could take the lever off, take this lever off, and do it that way. Some people do this differently. This is all up to you. As you can tell, I'm not having such a fun time right now. But, let me see, almost got it. I'm just trying to straighten these pins out, really. So, okay, so let me let's go look for some needle nose. Okay. I'm gonna just pinch these together since these aren't curled backwards. This is probably gonna be the most tedious part. So as you can see, I'm trying to mash these together because there's just a little tiny hole that both of these are actually going through. So just trying to flatten these out. Okay. Okay. And now what you want to do is you want to pull the big part right there. You don't have a lot of room here. This is probably going to be the most tedious part. Let me see if I get a different angle if I move this lever. Okay, it's not wanting to move. If you had a really small screwdriver, you could probably fit it in the hole of that and pull it out the other side. There we go, it's coming. If you do lose this, you can actually use other things. If you have some of those staples that they use in carpentry, the really big ones, you can use that and just wrap it around this, or whatever you have laying around, kind of hold this in place. Okay, eventually, okay, it fell out. It's down there somewhere. So in this case, you could have maybe 1 or 2 prongs that go through it. Sometimes one leg goes through, sometimes I put both the legs through it. What I did was I just flattened it out and just pushed out the other way and it actually come out. So obviously you could have something a little different, but you see the little hole, so they either have both prongs through it or one. If they just have one, all you have to do is straighten it out and just mash it out. If there's 2 and they have it wrapped around it, just unwrap it, pinch it, and then grab the other side and pull it out. So now that that's done, you have, okay, make sure the top of the screw doesn't fall out. So this will be loose, so make sure you take it out because mine just fell down in the frame. Okay, now that that's over with, go ahead and flip the chair back down if you flip it up. Very gently. Okay. So now you want to work on getting the motor out. Let me see, typically 5mm, what they usually all are. And if you do lose some of these Allens, usually Ace carries them. I haven't had much luck at Lowe's. 5mm. You definitely want to make sure you get the right size, or you will actually crack the gearbox. So you want to put, if this motor is bad and you're replacing it, it doesn't necessarily matter if you ruin the threads in the motor. However, if you're taking your chair apart just to sell it, you want to make sure the threads don't get damaged in the process. So what you can do is the tire that you just took off, you can lift the chair up a little bit and set it on it. You may want to set something else under here. So let's go ahead and I'll just grab something here. This will work. Oh, great. Okay. If you want to go really overboard, There we go. Ta-da. Okay. So I may have jumped a step here. Okay. So you do have a lot of cord here, so you can take it off, but let's go ahead and cut these zip ties. You want to make sure you don't cut the actual cord, so be careful when you, not to rush this part. So what I like to do is I like to stay away from the cord as much as possible. Just don't even play that game. There you go. Oh goodness. Okay, there's another one. You definitely want to buy some zip ties. Okay, I think, okay. So go ahead and start loosening them. You want to just barely loosen, and it's gonna take some pressure. So you definitely don't want to hurt yourself, or you definitely want to loosen enough and then bang your hand on something. I've done that too many times. You're gonna have to use something like this because you can't use the ones that take a socket because you can't get behind here. So something that you can do, if you have a multi-purpose screwdriver, you can actually take the bit out, or something you can take the bit out of, and you can use the other side and use it as leverage. Whoa. And then you do want to put pressure down here. You don't want to mess this part up. And just give it a pull. There you go. And just loosen it a little bit, because you have to loosen all these like a tire. Okay. I've seen these strip before. It's not a good day when it happens. Actually, these should be making a popping sound. It's interesting that it's not. Because once you turn it enough, the sealant that's on these screws would break and you'd hear a popping sound. So if you do hear a popping sound, it's normal. Somebody's obviously been in here before. There we go. So you have one back here, should be 6. This is going to be the hardest one to get. Okay. I'm trying to give you a bird's eye view and be prepared to get messy. Okay. May not have the leverage. Wow. Okay. So you want to be careful. The first turn is always the most important. Okay, this one is on there extremely tight. You may have to work it from the inside. There we go. I'm going to get this in here. Okay. Okay, so let's try this one from the inside. This tool is this long. There we go. Let's try it. Okay, I'm hitting the seat post. Let me try it from a different angle. Okay. Goodness. Okay. You may have to use a different technique here. They didn't give you enough room on this one. Might be too big. hold the other side of the frame here. I think I got it. Let me see here. There we go. Got it. Okay. So that was the hardest one. I would take that one off first when we get to it. You just want to just barely loosen them. We won't try that again. Hopefully you just have to do that one time. All right, my tool's a little too long. There we go. And this will be the last one I haven't gotten yet. Okay. There we go. There it is. Okay, so now they're a little bit loose. We got a little bit of room on each one of them. So you still want to kind of go along and loosen them still. So you want to keep loosening them little by little still. There we go. Constantly. This is going to be a little bit tedious. Of course, this last one is definitely going to be the first one you take off. You're going to have to work at it from the inside of the frame. So you're probably going to have to take your batteries out, most likely. Okay, I'm out of focus. Come on, iPhone. So I'm going to go ahead and take this one just about all the way out. This motor does have a lot of grease on it. Let's look. Okay. Goodness. Okay. So let me go ahead and loosen all of these. Okay, so I went ahead and loosened them just about all the way. I went ahead and took this back one out because you want to go ahead and do that one first. So now at this point, we start loosening, you should start seeing a little gap here. So this is the point where if you're reselling the motor, you want to make sure you support this or it's flush against the plate. So obviously you do need another hand, but you want to do this so you want to make sure the screw comes out straight. That's why I have stuff propped under it. So go ahead and start loosening the rest of them. I'm leaving this one in here. So go ahead and take all of these off. Total of 6 on this plate. Let me see. Eventually be able to turn it by hand. It's not right now. ahead and get this back one out. This front one. Now when you start pulling it out, it should be, once they're loose, they should come out really easy. If it starts getting really tight, you want to make sure that the motor's level, because if it starts getting tight, that's telling me that it's not coming out straight. So make sure you have the motor level or flush as much as possible, because there shouldn't be that much more tension on it. I'm running into that problem. So, there we go. You also want to make sure if you keep your chair outside, you want to be very cautious of spiders. I've run into a couple black widows hiding behind the tire, and that happened twice. So they, for some reason, like hiding behind the tires. But I've actually freaked out, sitting with my hand behind it, pulling on it. But just be very careful if you leave it outside. Stuff like that does happen. Okay, eventually it'll come out my hand. Okay. Almost. Get one more turn. Go. And as you can tell, this was the screw I took out from the first row. This is the screw from the second. If you mess this up, you will crack your gearbox. So a way you can tell is which screw goes where is the three longer ones will always point towards the shaft, the motor of the gearbox, excuse me. So these right here will all be this length. The ones in the back, furthest away from the shaft, will be slightly smaller. There's your comparison. Also, if you're in this chair and you strip one of these, one thing you can do is you can have somebody, if you strip this, get a pair of pliers, and if you haven't stripped it a lot, turn it while somebody turns it with pliers, and sometimes that will get it out. If that doesn't get it out, you have to think about drilling, which it's kind of a bad spot. You may be able to get to these three. It would be extremely rough because the frame's in the way. Okay, let me see if you could. Yeah, you got just maybe a tad bit, so it'll be extremely rough. You may have to take it somewhere to get it torched off if that's the case. Anyway, but they should have gave you more room in here to work with. So I'll go ahead and get this last two out. Okay, let's move on. Okay, we're actually almost done with this job. After we get these two screws off, Allen screws, we will have to unplug it from the control box. So let's go ahead and take these out. we go. Let's get these two. Okay. I can feel it falling, so make sure you hold it up. Okay, almost there. See how long that one is? Let's try to get this last one. There we go. Okay, it's coming. Probably going a little bit faster than I should. So, slow down a little bit. Okay. There it goes. Now the motor will fall down, so be careful. Okay. So, we do have a lot of cord to work with. I am familiar with the control box. This is the control box. Those plugs that are under it is where the motor is plugged to. If you're not familiar with it, which you may not be, you could take the foot plate off and then take this cover off. So I guess, let me see here. I guess we'll just do that just for your safety. Okay. So basically I'm still got this motor jacked up. So let me set this motor down and I'll turn this chair around. I could unplug it right now, but you won't know which piece to put down, so let me go ahead and lower this. Okay. So I'm gonna turn this chair around. Don't lose my Allen's here. Okay. Okay, let me give you the angle here. Okay, so here's the foot plate. You have this brass plug. All you have to do is press it in and then pull it out. If you ever lose that, screw in a nut. They want too much money for that. Then this should pull out. Okay. Okay, so Phillips. You see my Phillips screwdriver. A second. Okay. Oh, upside down. Okay. Okay, obviously a different size. Size smaller should work. Make sure you put a lot of pressure on this. You don't want to strip it. Okay, these screws are All these screws are hard to find, so try not to lose them. And this place should come down to the, here's your brain controller. So you can actually follow if you're just doing one motor. This is what I was saying earlier. If you buy a set of motors off eBay, don't do any of this until you first hook it to your box. Make sure the motors are locked, because if they're unlocked, they're going to throw a flash code. Go ahead and hook your motors to this box, and don't even bother taking anything apart, because if the motors aren't the problem, or you got a faulty motor, and you got a heck of a lot of stuff laying everywhere. So, and it may not even be your problem. It could be, if you're getting a flash code, it could be the batteries are extremely low, or the joystick is throwing a flash code, which you need to be careful about the flash codes, because sometimes in our case, they're not always correct. We've actually had a joystick throw or a controller throw a joystick fault code, and we changed the joystick, the brand new joystick. It still threw the same code. And what happened was the soldering that controlled that port was bad on the motherboard, which in turn threw a joystick code. So I mean, same thing, a motor code, but it'd be something in here that's connected to what controls the motor on the motherboard and gives you a false code. So we run into that sometimes, and now we got to the point where we don't even look at it anymore. So I know your case, you have to trust it. In our case, we have parts laying around, we can just throw it on there. So anyway, before you take your chair apart, you bought some motors off eBay, just hook it to this just to see that it's what it is, and then start doing all of this. It's just really good advice. Okay, so you can follow your cord if you're just doing one motor. You can actually see which one it's plugged into, because you would have two. So go ahead and follow your cord. Okay, you will have another zip tie here. So let's go ahead and cut it. Be very careful. Okay, so obviously, let's see. This one's actually hooked to the far end. Oh. Okay, so some light in here. So you see the plug here. There we go. And you see this little hump right here. So what you want to do, get my finger in the way. You want to press down in the middle. You should feel something go down. So you press down and move it to the left and right and pull down at the same time. So here's the actual motor plug. You can see when I press it down, it pushes this pin down, and I can actually take it off without breaking this clip. If you do break the clip, what I would do is, I probably on one side, I'll just put a little bit of, it's just a drop of super glue right there. If you do happen to break it, and it shouldn't fall out. But anyway, you can see it better now when I press it in, and then wiggle it up and just pull it down as you're wiggling. Make sure you keep that pressed down though. Okay, so now we feed it through. And ta-da! Now your motor's off. So just reverse the process. Sorry about that. So reverse the process and you'll be good.